name is Karloz from Manufactura, and this is an interview, exclusive interview, for COMA Music Magazine.
So I know that you were looking forward to seeing Leatherstrip at this festival. What did you think?
I love Leatherstrip.
I saw you on the other side of the stage
yeah.
with me rocking out.
Oh yeah. You know, I mean, he took me back to when I was a kid, and I told him personally, you know, I did a lot of drugs when I was coming into his music.
Sure.
So a lot of that stuff subconsciously has seeped through, and not just for me, but obviously a lot of other people. You know, I know 9 Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy have mentioned him before as, you know, as an outside influence on what he was bringing into the table, you know, and same thing with Front 242. They had a unique sound, but Leatherstrip kind of brought it all together, you know, in a whole different way. So it was a pleasure and a privilege to be able to play right before him. So yeah, great guy, awesome guy, and you know, he's a living legend in the underground. Indeed. So he deserves all the homage that we can give him. Yeah,
it was great looking around, seeing you and you know, a couple of guys from Soul's Affection, a couple of guys from Sin DNA, guys from BTK.
Yeah, and rightly so.
Everybody.
I mean, technically, in a way, a lot of us wouldn't be able to do what we're doing if it weren't for him. You know, in a subconscious way, maybe a lot of them may have not been directly influenced, but you know, indirectly they had to have been. You know, definitely. I mean, before Wumpscut, before, you know, Suicide Commando's, you know, newer phase, you know, there was Leatherstrip, and the man is a legend, so can't say enough nice things about him. So
you described your newest release, Avulsion, as your most selfish album. What prompted you to take Manufactura into a more dark ambient realm for this release?
The new album pretty much is my way of starting over again. When I started doing music, I started experimenting, and basically it was all, you know, ambient stuff and a lot of drone material, and that's what I gravitated to originally, and I just thought it was time that I kind of focused on that again. Because I did that kind of music, and I still do it just for myself, practice-wise. And so I basically record stuff and just for myself, and then I figured, why not just do it, you know? So I decided I had to do it.
Getting back to your roots.
Yeah, basically, it's kind of like the album the original album I kind of wanted to write when I first started out, but you know, the rhythmic noise stuff kind of got into me, and I just kind of fell into that. So, but the ambient stuff, it's, you know, it's part of my heart, so I had to do it. So.
Was there a different process in creating Avulsion compared to your other works? Would you describe how you put these songs together?
Yeah, because most of the music that I normally do, as far as the other 6 albums, it's heavily sample-based as far as vocal samples, and a lot of vocals, songs, singing, and a lot of yelling and screaming, and a lot of lyric-motivated stuff. This new album was basically just pure gut-driven, and it's more spiritual to me, and that's basically how I designed it, where it had to be that kind of spirituality-based, whatever it might be, and I don't discriminate particularly as far as what somebody might believe or not, but in my case, you know, I like meditation. Meditation helps me, and so I wrote that music basically to do meditation kind of stuff. But a lot of people in the past have used that music for, you know, different types of practices. So I'm all for it. Whatever floats your boat, you know.
How does the song naming process happen? In particular with songs such as The Black Widow and The Serpent King.
That's funny. Well, everything I do is very personal, and so it has personal meaning for myself, but I do it in a way where it can be interpreted by you know, whoever's listening to it in whatever fashion they would like, from the logo to the name to the music itself. So that came about, you know, from some past experiences, you know, where I basically painted individuals in my past as those characters.
Right.
And some of the characters could be myself, but you know, it's kind of hard to talk about because it is personal.
Sure.
But I do it in a way where it's broad, so anybody can, you know, listen to it and hear their own version of it.
Right.
But yeah, it has to do with some of the individuals in my past.
Okay. So you dedicated Avulsion to the now departed Coil. Would you care to discuss what influences you acquired from that legendary act?
When I was coming up, listening to the stuff as a teenager and hearing the stuff that Coil was doing, I was heavily using drugs, and hearing their material, it just basically helped me as a guide to a certain way of thought,
right.
a certain train of thought, and I enjoyed it immensely. And it spoke to me in many levels, you know, and individually, you know, both John Valance and Sleazy individually had their own ideas, and music-wise and production-wise, they talked to me in a certain way that I just had to basically pay homage, because I actually got to meet Sleazy at the last Throbbing Gristle show in LA, and he was very kind, very generous individual, and you know, he's just musically a huge inspiration, not just for me, but you know, maybe not necessarily a direct influence to a lot of people that are doing this kind of stuff, but he definitely touched a lot of people and has influenced a lot of people, not only musically, artistically, but you know, spiritually and intellectually. So
you have mentioned magic as one of the inspirations for music found on Avulsion. With the Coil dedication and the spelling of magic, would you comment on your own experiences with this inner ritual?
I've had a lot of individuals in my life that I don't believe in any one train of thought.
Sure.
So, but I like to learn and experience different types of thoughts. And people in my life have come and gone that have gravitated towards that, and I see how it helps them, and I see how that type of spirituality and that kind of practice assists them in getting through the hardships of, you know, human conditions.
Right.
And so because of that, I appreciate that. But I'm also a big fan, you know, Eastern thought, Eastern practice, spirituality, and you know, a lot of Native American beliefs as well. And I think you just kind of have to be open about it, and it's got to speak to you. If it doesn't speak to you, then you know, it won't do it. But magic in per se, it's general, but you know, it's actually, believe it or not, in my view, the basis of, you know, all spirituality.
Sure.
I mean, before paganism, before all that, it's a practice, it's a method. And musically speaking, it's basically the same. All musicians go through a method, a practice, and it's the same thing. We're trying to speak to people in different ways, and there is magic in music, so that's what it means to me.
And if you ask Christina, musicians are magicians.
That's how I saw it. That's when I came up. I was like, wow, you know, why is it that certain music, you know, just touches you and connects with you, and you've never heard of these people before, yet they speak to you in a level that, you know, just changes your way of thinking.
Sure.
And makes you either feel one way or the other. And music is, you know, one of the core essentials in life, whether it's tribal, you know, or basic, you know, ancient beats and, you know, tribal rhythms and all that stuff, to even more digital stuff. If it connects with you, that's magic.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
The promotional video for Avulsion features the track
Industrialitas Sexuales.
Care to describe how the video was created and the influence in it? For at times it seems to have a touch of Kenneth Anger.
It's funny because I'm a big fan of Kenneth Anger, and when I moved to LA back in 2005, I lived in the same. Well, I worked and lived in the same building where he lived at, so I had to collect rent from Kenneth Anger, and he was always a day or two late.
Right.
And you know, I kissed his ass. You know, I mean, you know, in that same building, you had. I can't remember the name of the bassist from Marilyn Manson that died, or I can't remember his name, but he lived in that building too. But he basically just OD'd like maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But he lived in that building as well, and there was a lot of, you know, kind of rejected artists, kind of thing, underground artists. But yeah, Kenneth Anger is, you know, I love him to death. I think, you know, he's an unspoken director, and my music is actually more influenced by visual artists such as David Lynch and, you know, Darren Aronofsky and Peter Greenaway, and in some cases Kenneth Anger. And the video I did, it was actually somebody that kind of played on touches of Kenneth Anger with a David Lynch feel to it, and I just basically adopted what they did, you know, kind of basically just stole their imagery and applied it to the music.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because the original video that I had in mind was going to be Kenneth Anger.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how you how you got that connection, but that's pretty unnerving, actually.
Kind of going that same direction, if you had a chance to redo the soundtrack for a film, what director or film would you choose?
That's a tough one, because I'm a big fan of film. I love film, but I think if I, you know, because I mean, the thing is with film is that, you know, I love the writing of a script. If it's well written,
right,
you know, that's what makes it, not necessarily the music. But in certain cases, like the old black and whites, yeah, and I would say, I mean, if I had a chance to do something like that, you know, just to do like a fresh take on something classic, it might be Beauty and the Beast by John Cocteau, which is an amazing movie.
Right.
And but it would be a completely different take, you know, I would make it darker.
Sure.
So the imagery would translate completely different.
Right.
Because, you know, I mean, you're talking about beasts and beauty, and you know, in certain cases, yeah, maybe some people might make it ethereal, but there could be a darker side to it. So.
Sure. Knowing you are a fan of the writer Bukowski, who are you reading now? Who would you recommend these days?
Well, I've actually, and I know I'm probably going to get hate mail and stuff from people, but I'm actually reading a lot of the new lyrics that Lou Reed did with Metallica. I'm a big fan of Lou Reed and Leonard Cohen, those kinds of guys. And
sure.
That's pretty much what I read. I try to find their older stuff that's out of print and try to locate that kind of stuff, because I think it's a shame that it's out of print or hasn't been reprinted, because they're just, I mean, yeah, well, Leonard Cohen's Canadian, but I think he's a huge influence in, you know, American literature as well. And not just literature, but music. And the same thing can be said for Lou Reed, obviously, you know. But in my view, Lou Reed is a poet first, and then a musician. But, you know, when he puts it together, it's magic. It's wonderful. So basically, yeah, I've been kind of hooked into the idea of what Lou Reed has been doing, and, you know, he's been working on random plays and stuff, such as, you know, basically the Lulu stuff, which is based on an old play from a German writer, and I can't remember the name of him. But I'm intrigued by that idea that he's basically doing a different take on older material that has inspired him. For somebody like him to be still doing it after all those years, it's an inspiration.
So now we got another question on your own likes. What album or band did you find yourself listening to a lot this year?
That's a tough question, because I listen to a lot of music. You know, I mean, everything from like jazz to classical music to, you know, a lot of different electronica, from a little bit of dubstep, some of the stuff that's coming out. I listen to a little bit of everything, but there's not one particular band that I've been listening to per se. So yeah, off the top of my head, I can't really think of somebody individually. There's individual tracks from different people, but I actually kind of rediscovered the Knife. And what's funny is that originally when I heard the Knife stuff, studio stuff, I wasn't that thrilled about it. But when I heard their live versions, it's like, wow, that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they were also fans of David Lynch, that kind of drew me into that too.
All right, so to wrap this up, with 5 projects under your belt and the year 2011 coming to an end, could you tell us what you have in the works for 2012?
For 2012, I'd like to finish the new Broken Fabiola album, but I've been trying to collaborate with different musicians, but unfortunately, time in music is a very sketchy thing sometimes. So sometimes the people don't have the time for it. Sure. But I've been working on it since 2008. So I need to get it out. I just have to. It's the time. It's going to be the last Broken Fabiola album. And then I'm working on some new stuff for Manufactura, which will probably be, released before the end of the Mayan calendar, just in case. I just would like to thank everyone that listens to the music, that are supported it over the years. I wouldn't be playing or performing if it wasn't for people, listening to the music and enjoying it. And I know a lot of people have, connected to it personally, and so that means a lot to me because it is a personal experience for myself. It's a self therapy, and it has helped a lot of people, so I appreciate that. So actually, there is going to be a EP for Manufactura coming out hopefully early 2012, and it's going to be mostly like reprices of older material. So I'm working on that now, but it's going to take some time because unfortunately some of the older material, it's not necessarily that I don't like it, but I kind of want to change it up. So I like to play around with stuff like that.
Modernize it.
Yeah, and then apparently, met a lot of new friends at this festival, so some collaboration work as well. So it's all in the works. So 2012, I'm always working.
Yeah.
I've been called prolific, but I don't know about all that. It's just madness.
All right.
Really.
Well, that's all we got for you. I do thank you for the interview.
All right. Thank you, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
I love COMA Magazine.
Thank you.
COMA Music Magazine.
Indeed.